Chapter 973. In just a few breaths' time, there were already 2 red vine pupae in midair. Gu Mingming could sense that Elvis was releasing his beast pressure in an attempt to struggle, but the blood vines did not move at all, as if they were completely unaffected by the beast pressure. The same piercing pain came from her collarbone. Elvis was also injured. This realization drove Gu Mingming crazy. In that instant she regretted it. If the price of obtaining the soul of the forest was losing Elvis and Leah, then she did not want it anymore. She would think of other ways to redeem her sons. She could not let anything happen to Elvis and Leah. With that thought in mind, Gu Mingming was already charging towards the red vines. She was the most powerful in the entire beast world. If there was anyone who had the ability to save them, it would be her. Before she could even step in, she felt something tighten around her waist. Her feet immediately left the ground, and her body retreated backwards. The moment she stopped, Wabiai's venomous eyes were inches away. His bone-chilling voice assaulted Gu Mingming's eardrums. "What do you want to do?" "I want to save my man." Wabiai's snake tail wrapped tightly around Gu Mingming's waist. He gritted his teeth. "He exchanged his life for yours. I will not allow you to waste it anywhere." Gu Mingming bit her lower lip. She knew that Snake had sacrificed himself to save her life. She knew what she had lost to Snake. But no matter how guilty she felt, she could not watch Elvis and Leah die. "Stay here obediently. I will go save your little wolf pups and cunning foxes." Wabiai let go of Gu Mingming. In his half-beast form, he was at least 2.5 meters tall. He was unbelievably imposing in front of Gu Mingming. He turned around with his back facing Gu Mingming. "Unless I die, I will not allow you to trample on his treasures." With that, Wabiai shot into the range of the red vines like an arrow. His speed was faster than the vine's movement speed, so it was not easy for the vines to wrap around him. After over 800 years of battling with Snake, he was very clear on how to avoid damage in a linear attack. But even so, there were just too many vines to deal with. In the end, Wabiai became the 3rd vine pupa in midair. Gu Mingming knew that Elvis and Leah would not be able to hold on much longer. She had no time to waste. Even though her body quality was far from a male's, she had Snake's strength. So when she neared the red vines, the moment the vines attacked her, she grabbed one of them and pulled it forcefully, tearing it apart. The end that was connected to the root seemed to be in great pain, as it trembled and shrank back. The other end that was torn off was like a fish that was stranded on the shore, flopping around meaninglessly for a while before it stopped moving. Red liquid flowed out from the wound, and the corpse of the vine gradually became transparent as the red liquid flowed out. Gu Mingming did not know what this meant. She only knew that she had the ability to break the vines. This meant that she could save Elvis, Leah, and Wabiai. The vines did not continue to attack her like unintelligent creatures. Instead, they twisted together in groups of 3 to 5 before attacking her. The 3 vines twisted into a fried dough twist, the thickness of which was comparable to Gu Mingming's calf. She could not even grab hold of it, let alone pull it apart. Chapter 974. The vines didn't break, but they cut Gu Mingming's hand. Then, the vines in her hand were like fruits placed in a fruit dryer, withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then, the red liquid slowly flowed into Gu Mingming's body through the wound on her palm like silk. Gu Mingming was at a loss at this sudden change, and didn't know what to do. She could only open her palm, and watch as the red vines gradually lost their color. Thousands of silk threads gathered in her palm, and finally entered her body. Gu Mingming could feel an endless amount of energy flowing into her body, challenging and breaking through the limits of what her body could withstand. In the end, only the 3 pupae in midair were left in this sea of red. "Ah!" Gu Mingming screamed as she endured the pain from the swelling of her body. In an instant, the 3 pupae burst open. A black figure dashed towards Gu Mingming, and caught her as she fell backward. He protected her in his arms and kissed her forehead. His heart ached for her sweaty and exhausted appearance. He whispered, "Xiao Meng, it's all right now, it's all right now." Wabiai returned to Gu Mingming's side at almost the same time as Elvis. He just stood behind Gu Mingming, pursing his lips and not saying a word. And Leah was not as powerful as Elvis and Wabiai. He was also the first to be wrapped in the pupae, and was the weakest. He wanted to be like Elvis, and use his last bit of energy to rush towards Gu Mengmeng. Even if he died, he wanted to die in her arms. But unfortunately, this was the difference in their abilities. He used his last bit of energy to break out of the pupae. Leah! Leah! After the pupae wrapped them up, the leaves became incomparably sharp. Lee's entire body was covered in wounds. Although he knew medicine, and had protected his important arteries and larger blood vessels in advance, he was still covered in wounds from the leaves, and was covered in blood. He heard Gu Mengmeng calling him, so he gritted his teeth, and forced a smile as he slowly walked towards her. One step, another step. When he finally reached her, Gu Mengmeng was sobbing uncontrollably. Leah knelt down on one knee and caressed Gu Mengmeng's face. Mengmeng, don't be afraid. I am here. Gu Mengmeng's consciousness was already on the verge of blurring. The last scene she saw was countless blood-like red liquid exploding on Lee's back, before shooting towards her like congealed blood needles. Her vision darkened and Gu Mengmeng fainted. As long as Elvis and Leah were fine, that was good. If she died, then so be it. In any case, she would only cause trouble for them. If it wasn't for her willfulness, the two of them would probably be able to live a better life. Someone kept calling her name by her ear, but she couldn't open her tired eyes. Her whole body sank down, lying in the position of a baby in its mother's womb, as if her whole body was soaked in a kind of scarlet blood. Silence. Everything was so quiet that it was suffocating. Even the traces of the flow of time couldn't create a single ripple here. After an unknown period of time, Gu Mengmeng finally opened her eyes slowly. It was just her eyelashes fluttering slightly, but this slight movement was like a stabilizing force that calmed Elvis and Lee's turbulent world. Chapter 975. After Gu Mengmeng regained her consciousness, she opened her mouth to speak, but realized that her throat was extremely hoarse and so dry that it hurt. Elvis immediately brought a cup of water to her lips so that she could moisten her throat. This water was very sweet and different from what she had drunk in the past. There was no pollution in the beast world, and all springs, streams and rivers could be used directly. It had a special natural sweetness, but this cup was different. After drinking it, she could feel the sweetness spreading through her blood vessels to every part of her body. Her dry body felt as if it was being nourished and irrigated. That feeling was very magical. It was as if her body had been cleansed completely, and she had become transparent and clean. Is everyone all right? Gu Mengmeng could finally speak. Elvis nodded, and carried Gu Mengmeng into his arms like a princess. He deeply inhaled the fragrance of her hair to calm down the uneasiness he had been feeling for the past few days. His voice was tired and hoarse, but it was mixed with a different kind of gentleness. Only you were unconscious for 3 days and 2 nights. Everyone else is fine. Gu Mengmeng nodded. Gu Mengmeng then nodded and felt much more at ease. Turning her head, Gu Mengmeng leaned her entire body against Elvis's chest and reached out a hand to caress Lee's face. Her body was very tired, but she tried her best to smile. It's great that you are all right. Gu Mengmeng's voice was a little weak. I was really scared when I saw you covered in blood before I fainted. Leah covered Gu Mengmeng's hand with his large hand and pulled it from his face to his lips. He kissed it deeply and said, I'm sorry, I'm too weak and made you worry. Gu Mengmeng smiled and shook her head. It's not that you're too weak. It's that I brought you guys to a dangerous place. It's all my fault. I had no confidence at all, and let you guys take the risk with me. Silly girl. Lee's lips could not bear to leave this soft little hand. He had been holding it like this for the past 3 days, afraid that her hand would turn cold, and he would never be able to lift it again. Now that this little hand was still warm, and his Gu Mengmeng could still talk to him, the panic he had been suppressing for the past 3 days started to flare up. The more he thought about it, the more scared he became. Partners exist to protect you, and do whatever you want. If I can't protect you, it will be my sin. Gu Mengmeng did not argue with Leah about the beast world's views on love. After all, in the beast world, where if you don't act, you won't love me. It was really hard for Gu Mengmeng to tell them not to be too petty in love. Elvis pulled Gu Mengmeng's shoulders to make her sit up straight, Then he sat opposite her. His blue eyes stared deeply at Gu Mingming, as he frowned with a serious expression. Gu Mingming had never seen Elvis facing her so seriously before. She panicked for a moment and subconsciously smiled to please him, asking, "Hubby, what's wrong?" Elvis did not say a word, and just stared deeply at Gu Mingming. His thin lips were pressed into a straight line, giving off an oppressive feeling as if a storm was brewing. Gu Mingming felt that Elvis was angry this time, but she did not know what he was angry about, so she looked at Leah for help. Unexpectedly, Lee's eyes darkened, and he actually sat beside Elvis. Chapter 976. What exactly happened? Gu Mingming asked cautiously. Elvis took 2 deep breaths before saying slowly, "Why didn't you escape then?" "Ah." Gu Mingming looked at Elvis in confusion. "Escape? When? Where to escape to?" Leah continued Elvis's words and continued. "Wabi, I already told us that when we were entangled by the blood vines, you had the chance to escape. But not only did you not escape, you even charged towards the blood vines." Lee's tone was gentler than Elvis's, but his words were full of reproach. This made Gu Mingming feel as if she did not stay behind to save them, but just ran away without a care in the world. Wasn't this state of mind reversed? Shouldn't he be extremely touched, kissing, hugging and raising her high up in the air? Why was he acting as if she was having an affair and wanted to divorce him? "Xiaomeng, you promised us that you would prioritize your own safety under any circumstances." Every word of Elvis sounded as if he had used a knife to pry open his heart and grinded his words with his blood. Gu Mingming felt a throbbing pain in her heart just by listening to him. She could feel her heart throbbing in pain. "I remember." Gu Mingming's voice softened and she frowned, but did not look like she was admitting her mistake. She said stubbornly, "But the situation this time is special. If I didn't help, you and Leah would have died." How could Elvis not know that Gu Mingming was risking her life for them? It would be a lie to say that he was not touched. He was so touched that he wanted to dig out his own heart and crush it to appease the strange movements in his chest. "But it is my honor to die for you." Clenching his teeth, he carefully polished every inch of Gu Mingming's worries during the 3 days she was unconscious. With the blood in his heart, he ground it into cinnabar and dripped it between his lips. He used his words to let her clearly see the wound on his heart and how painful and fatal it was. "If anything happens to you, the both of us will not be able to die in peace." Leah had said these words to her before. At that time, they were still in the Snake King Valley, and Snake was still alive. She used her body to block in front of Elvis to prevent Snake from using his snake tail to whip Elvis. But in the end, Elvis protected her in his arms and forcefully received Snake's tail. At that time, she begged Leah to quickly save Elvis, but Leah held her shoulders and said, "If anything were to happen to you, we wouldn't be able to rest in peace. If we still have any weight in your heart, promise me that you will prioritize your own safety under any circumstances." She remembered what she had promised, but if she really wanted to watch Elvis and Leah die while she stayed out of it and escaped, she could not do it. Raising her head, Gu Mingming's eyes reddened. "Let me tell you, I regret it. No matter how many times in the future, as long as you and Leah are in danger, I will not care about anything else and rush over to save you. If you die, I won't live alone." Xiaomeng. This was the first time Elvis had shouted at her like this. In the past, no matter what she did, no matter how willful she was, Elvis had never shouted at her like this. Gu Mingming straightened her neck and tears rolled down her cheeks. She refused to give in and roared, "It's useless even if you roar at me. I just can't live without the two of you. What can you do about it? Bite me if you can." Hearing Gu Mingming roaring this sentence in a provocative tone, Elvis and Leah felt their chests hurting from the shock. Chapter 977. Elvis clenched his fists for a long time before finally giving in to Gu Mingming's tears. Hugging her in his arms, Elvis sighed deeply. "I want to protect your smile, but I always make you cry. I am still too weak." Snake's last words to him were like an awl hanging over his heart. Whenever Gu Mingming was hurt or wronged, it would fall down and stab him viciously. Gu Mingming shook her head. "You have already done very well, really very well. but you still cried. Elvis cupped Gu Mingming's little face, his heart aching for her. He kissed away her tears and stared into her reddened eyes. You clearly know that I am helpless against your tears, but you still cry and force me to give in. Wabi-I walked over and snorted coldly. Are you done with your nonsense? Are you still going to take the soul of the forest? Gu Mingming's face was still covered in tears. She turned to look at Wabi-I. Oh little shit, you are not dead, Wabi-I gritted his teeth. I have already said that the only person who can kill me in this world has been killed by you. So I will not die. Gu Mingming nodded. Yes, people say that a scourge lives for 1,000 years. So you can at least live for another 200 years. Wabi-I realized that he had no advantage over Gu Mingming at all. He could not win in a fight, nor could he win in an argument. In the end, he just rolled his eyes in anger and didn't say anything else. But with Wabi-I's interference, Gu Mingming stopped crying. Sniffing, she looked around and realized that she was no longer with the blood vines. She asked, "Were you all hurrying along when I was unconscious?" Elvis shook his head. "When you were unconscious, we didn't dare to move you for fear of an accident. So we did not move from the same spot." Did not move from the same spot. Gu Mingming was extremely confused. The surrounding scenery was crystal clear, as if it was a world carved out of crystal. It was pure white and transparent, so clean that one could not bear to touch it for fear of tarnishing its purity. Where was the sinister look of the blood vines? If the blood vines were like a blood-stained cave, then this place was like the Jade Lake Palace in the 9 heavens. If one looked closely, it would not be difficult to discover that the crystalline plant was extremely similar to the blood vines. This is. Gu Mingming stared at it blankly for a long time, before she recalled the dazzling red silk that gathered in her palm, before she fainted. Spreading open his palm, the wound on his palm had already healed completely. There was no trace of it at all. Gu Mingming mumbled in a daze. So it wasn't a hallucination caused by my severe injuries. I really sucked the blood from the blood vines into my body. When did I become so capable? Elvis did not see the entire process of her absorption, but he did see the process of her absorbing the 3 vine chrysalises. Now that he saw her staring at her palm in a daze, he could not help but worry and asked, "Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere?" Gu Mingming looked at him and asked, "Are you feeling uncomfortable?" Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "I just felt a huge amount of energy entering my body at that time, but now I don't feel anything." Only then did Elvis heave a sigh of relief. "There's something strange about this place. We shouldn't stay here for long. We'd better end this quickly and return after taking the soul of the forest." Chapter 978. For some strange reason, Gu Mingming reached out a hand. That blood vine. Oh no, it should be called crystal vine now. The crystal vines intertwined with each other and formed a palm-like shape. Mimicking Gu Mingming's actions, it lightly stuck onto her palm. Then with a rustling sound, the crystal vine in front of them parted to reveal a fairyland in front of Gu Mingming's group. Elvis and Leah exchanged a look but didn't say a word. Leonard walked forward and bowed to Gu Mingming. "I was here to help, but I didn't expect to become a burden. This time let me lead the way." Gu Mingming didn't say a word and just nodded. Humans were all selfish. She didn't want Elvis and Leah to take any more risks. If they ended up in a cocoon and hung in midair again, Gu Mingming would go crazy. Peter felt guilty for attacking Gu Mingming, but he wasn't someone who would apologize. To him, rather than saying sorry 100 times, it was better to do something right to make up for it. Moreover, he didn't trust Leonard. So he didn't say a word, and just silently walked to Leonard's side to lead the way. Elvis carried Gu Mingming and followed behind them, while Leah stood by Elvis's side, protecting Gu Mingming from both sides. After all, he had the advantage of being longer. If there was a special situation, he could use his tail to fish Gu Mingming back. The group walked along the path that the crystal vine had guided them. The scenery was beautiful, but no one was in the mood to appreciate it. Gu Mingming couldn't stand the silence and poked Leah. "I just thought of something." Leah glanced at her and replied gently, "MMM?" Gu Mingming said, "Do you remember when I was in the deep sea? I told you that I had a dream. I dreamt that there was an endless amount of blood exploding in the sky behind you, and you came drenched in blood. That scene coincided with the last scene I saw before I fainted. It was exactly the same. Leah smiled playfully. Could it be that father-in-law gave you the heaven's eye of prophecy? Gu Mingming shook her head. How is that possible? Our lonely old man is very stingy. I don't know why he never gives me extra pocket money. If he really has the heavenly eye, he won't give it to me unless he drags me to watch 8 or 10 episodes of a TV series. Leah had heard too many of Gu Mingming's complaints about the beast deity. From the initial panic, he could now laugh it off. He nodded and said, that could just be a coincidence. Gu Mingming lowered her head and said hesitantly, if it's a coincidence, it's too much of a coincidence. The images are so accurate that every frame is exactly the same. Leah knew that Gu Mingming had a photographic memory after inheriting Snake's abilities, so he did not suspect that she had remembered wrongly. It was just a dream, so Leah did not take it to heart. He just rubbed Gu Mingming's little head and told her not to think too much. Gu Mingming thought about it and agreed. It was a waste of time to make wild guesses. She could just ask that lonely old man the next time she met him. Just as he was thinking, he suddenly heard an anguished wail. Gu Mingming seemed to have been scared out of her wits by the blood vines. Once she heard the wails, she immediately looked around with a face full of wariness. Chapter 979. Is the poison in the white fog acting up again? Gu Mingming asked in confusion. Leah shook his head and used his body to shield Gu Mingming. He glanced sideways at her. Don't you find him rather familiar? Gu Mingming frowned. She had no impression of him. Leah sighed. That's true. Cole is a 5th-level beast after all. He looks better when he's suffering from the backlash. Backlash? Gu Mingming was taken aback. She suddenly recalled the day when they had a showdown with Cole. She had used the backlash of the mating contract to defeat Cole. That day Cole was also in extreme pain. But he was not as writhing and trembling as Leonard was now. Did something happen to Dora? Gu Mingming understood what Leah meant. Leah nodded. Most likely. Gu Mingming frowned as she watched Leonard struggling in pain. He had no other way to deal with the backlash of the mating contract. No one could help him. Zacharias is heavily guarded. How could something happen to Dora in the tribe? Gu Mingming could not understand. Lee's lips curved up in disdain. No matter how heavily guarded the tribe is, it can't stop an idiot from courting death. Gu Mingming sighed. She didn't say anything else. After all, they were all here. No one knew what had happened outside. The only thing she could do now was to wait and see if Leonard could survive the backlash of the mating contract. To be honest, even though she had Snake's memories in her body and was used to seeing bloodshed, Gu Mingming still felt her heart wrench at Leonard's cries and pain. How much pain did he have to be in? How could such a man, who could remain unfazed even in the face of Mount Tai collapse, be in such a pathetic state? His eyes were bulging and bloodshot. She couldn't tell if it was tears or sweat, but they flowed down his face. Ah! Every cry came from the deepest part of his chest. Gu Mingming had personally witnessed what it meant to tear one's heart and lungs apart. A pair of sharp claws fiercely scratched at his chest, as if he wanted to dig out his heart and crush it to end this bone-piercing pain. However, he didn't know what made him resist this desire to dig out his heart and forcibly stop the sharp claws that had already sunk into his chest. After a long while, when Gu Mingming really wanted to give him a quick death, Leonard finally calmed down. At this moment, there was not a single piece of uninjured skin on his body. He looked like a demon that had crawled out of hell. His eyes were sinister and venomous. He trembled as he stood up, ignoring the blood that was still flowing out of his body. He only muttered, "Revenge, I have to avenge Dora. Dora, wait for me. I will come for you after I kill him. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Even in hell, I will protect you." As Reynolds spoke, he turned back the way he came. Gu Mingming did not stop him, and just let him leave. She didn't know if Leonard could survive that white fog. After all, he had fainted halfway, and it was Wabi who had brought him out. But at this moment his gaze was too determined. Gu Mingming deeply understood that revenge was his only reason for surviving. But who was he going to find for revenge? And how was he going to do it? Gu Mingming didn't know and didn't ask. Chapter 980. After Leonard left, Gu Mingming hugged Elvis's neck in silence for a long time. Elvis and Leah both thought that she was feeling upset after witnessing that scene because she was soft-hearted, but did not know how to comfort her. Afraid that they would say something wrong and make her even more upset, they could only remain silent. The group continued walking forward. After a long while, Gu Mingming suddenly said, "Hubby, I will definitely protect myself well in the future. I will definitely not let you and Leah experience what Leonard did." Both Elvis and Leah paused for a moment before they smiled. Females in the beast world had always viewed themselves as the most precious, and protecting themselves from any injuries was a basic norm. Only this little female in their family would rush to any dangerous place without stopping. Leah pinched Gu Mingming's cheek and said with indulgence and some helplessness, "You finally have some self-awareness as a female." Elvis also chuckled and kissed Gu Mingming's serious face, saying, "No matter what, knowing how to protect yourself is always a good thing. Don't forget it the moment you turn your head." Gu Mingming swatted away Lee's hand that was pinching her face, then leaned against Elvis's neck, whispering, "I will not forget, because I cannot bear to see you all suffer. When I saw Leonard rolling on the ground in pain just now, I was thinking, if it was you or Leah lying there, my heart would ache so much." Gu Mingming, who never knew how to avoid danger, and would often use herself as bait, learned to protect herself for them. Her heart was very warm. Kissing Gu Mingming's brow, Elvis only said one word, "Be good." After walking for a long while, they finally reached the end of the crystal vines. There was only one tree there, and it was so thick that it would require a few people to encircle it. Its roots were the size of a football field, and the roots closest to the trunk were even thicker than Wabiai's body. It could already be considered a sacred tree. If it was in the modern world, it would be listed as a protected area. Gu Mingming jumped down from Elvis's arms and walked towards the tree on her own. Elvis, Leah and the rest followed closely behind, but it was as if they were stopped 200 meters away by an invisible barrier, unable to take another step forward. Even Wabiai could not move an inch forward even with all his might. But Gu Mingming walked over without any obstacles. Turning around, Gu Mingming smiled at Elvis and Leah and said, "Don't worry. I can feel that it has no ill intentions and is not dangerous." Elvis and Leah frowned at the thought of the aggressive nature of the blood vines. If he didn't have any ill intentions, why didn't he allow them to get close? Gu Mingming did not say anything else, and just turned around to continue approaching the tree. The leaves on the tree glowed like emeralds, layer upon layer covering the clouds and the sun. Gu Mingming looked up and saw a leaf floating down leisurely, landing right in her palm. It was cool to the touch, and had a weight that did not belong to a plant. Gu Mingming scrutinized that piece of leaf. Then, she saw that the leaf gradually disappeared into her palm, as if it had melted into her palm, and into her body. Chapter 981. Gu Mingming stood under the tree. She looked like she was in a daze, but in fact, she was not thinking about anything. She was just feeling the changes in her body. She could feel the indescribable changes happening to her body from the bottom of her heart. After a long time, when the feeling of change stopped, she raised her hand and gently stroked the rough tree trunk. Then at the position of her fingertips, a tender shoot grew out. There were only 2 branches, one on the left and one on the right. The leaves on the branches were curled up like a baby's swaddling clothes. The tender green was clearly thin, but it exuded a kind of vitality. A soft, crisp sound was heard. That tender branch fell from the tree trunk and landed right in Gu Mingming's palm. This should be the soul of the forest, Gu Mingming muttered to herself. At the same time that the branch fell, the barrier blocking Elvis and Leah also disappeared. They almost instantly rushed to Gu Mingming's side. Elvis directly pulled Gu Mingming into his arms and hugged her deeply. He only calmed down when he was sure that she was unscathed. Hearing Elvis heave a sigh of relief above her head, Gu Mingming's lips curled up slightly. She showed them the branch in her palm and said, "I got the soul of the forest." Elvis originally did not care much about Qi Xian, so this ransom was not even worth mentioning to him. It was just that Gu Mengmeng had spent a lot of effort to obtain this stupid branch. He did not want to spoil her mood, so he gave it a mild look and said, keep it well. Let's go back. Gu Mengmeng nodded, and used a small piece of beast skin to wrap the soul of the forest. Then, she placed it back into her snakeskin pocket. The road back seemed to be smoother than when they came. There were not as many accidents, and the journey was exceptionally smooth. But when they exited the Crystal Vines area, they could not find the white fog door that they came from. It was not that they could not find it, but there were too many of them. She did not know which one was the real one. All the doors looked exactly the same. Even the markings that Leah had left behind were exactly the same. Gu Mengmeng did not know what to do. Would there be any accidents if she randomly chose one to enter? Just as she was hesitating, a familiar voice came from one of the doors. Gu, I'm here to pick you up. With that, Cole stepped out of the white fog with one foot while the other was still in the fog. Half of his body poked out of the white fog door, and he stretched out his hand in a welcoming gesture. Gu Mengmeng frowned in displeasure. Even though Cole's appearance had solved her problem of not being able to tell which door was which, but it could not hide the fact that she felt annoyed every time she saw him. What are you doing here? Gu Mengmeng was not in a good mood. She would not accept Cole's kindness just because he had pointed out the correct door. Nor would she refuse to enter out of spite, just because Cole was the one who pointed it out. Upon receiving Gu Mengmeng's signal, Elvis directly ignored Cole and walked past him through the white fog door. She had just stepped one foot in when the white fog started to roll, as if the thick clouds were being stirred up by a hurricane. Wave after wave surged towards Gu Mengmeng. Stunned for a moment, she took out the soul of the forest from her pocket. As expected, the white fog was sucked into the soul of the forest like a leak in a bathtub. Gu Mengmeng's mouth twitched. She smiled and said, planting trees is indeed the fundamental solution to prevent and control the smog. Aside from the topic, tomorrow was Susu's birthday. Will my babies come and wish me happy birthday? I'm looking forward to it. Chapter 982. As Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng forward, the white fog followed Gu Mengmeng into the soul of the forest. When they were halfway there, the visibility was much higher than when they came. At the very least, they could see each other's vague silhouettes. Cole then opened his mouth and said, Gu, do you intend to accept that fish? Gu Mengmeng frowned. At the same time, she could feel the intense murderous aura emanating from Elvis and Leah. She had already explained about Fei Rui, and they had temporarily believed her. But this matter could not be brought up again. As long as she did not chase Fei Rui back into the ocean, the two of them would not be at ease. It was also Gu Mengmeng's fault for saying such a stupid excuse to fool Dora. Speaking of Dora, Gu Mengmeng's gaze darkened as she looked at Cole. When she said she wanted to accept Fei Rui, there were not many people present. Other than the group around her, there were only Dora, Leonard, and the witch doctor from Zacharias Nick. So, how did Cole know about this? Gu Mengmeng frowned as she recalled the backlash from the mating contract with Leonard. She pursed her lips and did not say a word. Cole chuckled softly, as if he was trying to hold back his laughter. He looked up with a pair of eyes that were 80% similar to Lee's. His gaze seemed ambiguous through the white fog. His voice carried an uncomfortable sense of joy. I realized that you look so good when you are thinking about me wholeheartedly. Gu Mengmeng snorted in disdain. She did not say a word, and just turned her face to the other side. She felt very aggrieved. From a certain perspective, Cole was right. She was really thinking of him just now. Seeing her like this, Cole twisted her disgust into shyness. His smile deepened. All right, I won't tease you anymore. If you want to know, I can tell you. Gu Mengmeng was not interested. Actually, she had already guessed most of what had happened. Even if it was slightly different from the truth, it was not far from it. Most importantly, she did not want to hear Cole speak. She would feel disgusted the moment he opened his mouth. But Cole clearly did not want to give up the chance to show his presence in front of Gu Mengmeng. He just continued. You should have realized it long ago, right? How could that stupid female Dora have the brains to strategize? I was the one who taught her how to frame Melinda. With that, Cole paused for a moment. He suddenly smiled with some contempt and continued. But she is really good at stirring up other people's feelings. I just casually gave her a few pointers, and she actually learned it well. She instigated Carter to snatch the mermaid tribe's territory and severely injured Fei Rue. She really thought that Fei Rue would be hers if he had nothing left, and was at his wit's end. As expected, this matter was related to Cole again. Was it a surprise? It was hard to say. Initially, Gu Mingming did not think it was Cole, but after Cole admitted everything, Gu Mingming could not find a reason to be surprised. How should I put it? She felt that it wasn't strange that all the bad things in the world were related to him. In Gu Mingming's heart, the two of them were the source of all evil. Looking up, Gu Mingming asked coldly, "Since she was a useful chess piece, why did you kill her?" The white fog had thinned and Cole was not far from Gu Mingming. She could even see his expression clearly now. His eyes were like black peach blossoms, and there was a trace of affection in them. "Didn't you fall for Fei Rue? How can I allow others to covet what you like?" Aside from the topic, "Baby, do you want to say happy birthday to me?" Chapter 983. Just because of this, Gu Mingming did not like Dora, but not to the extent of wanting to kill her. Gu Mingming would not be able to live with the fact that she had caused a precious female to lose her life because of a lie she had told. Especially after personally witnessing the pain Leonard had to endure because of this. Cole thought for a moment before shaking his head. Because of this, but not just because of this. That female Dora is too stupid. Gu Mingming did not understand. Sometimes, she really wanted to try and understand what Cole was thinking, because then she might be able to find a way to rescue Qi Xian from his hands. But no matter how hard she tried, Gu Mingming could not succeed. A normal person would never understand the world of a lunatic. Cole looked into Gu Mingming's eyes and filtered out the disgust in them. He only admired the way those clear eyes were focused on him. He chuckled. Those eyes were so clean. If she could possess 30% bloodlust, 30% cruelty, 30% malevolence and 10% lust for him, how perfect would that be? But it was all right. He could take it slow and eventually achieve it. Even if she could not do it, he could slowly infuse all of these into her eyes. Chuckling, Cole said, "As a reward for her obedience, I gave her a team of underwater stray beasts to help her fulfill her wish to snatch Fei Rue away and imprison him. But she was too greedy. Not only did she want to snatch Fei Rue away, she also wanted to kill Melinda. And even set her sights on you. She wanted to snatch the kiss of the ocean, using my men to snatch my things from my woman. Don't you think she is extremely stupid?" Gu Mingming clenched her teeth. "I am not your woman." Cole turned a deaf ear to Gu Mingming's declaration. No matter what Gu Mingming said, she would be his sooner or later. Of course, only Cole thought this way in the entire world. Gu Mingming really wanted to kill Cole when she saw his face. But she did not dare to do so. She did not know if Qi Xian would jump out from nowhere to block her when she was about to kill Cole. As long as she did not snatch Qi Xian back, she would not be able to do anything to Cole. That was why he dared to appear in front of her and disgust her so blatantly, right? "That stupid female kept emphasizing her great love to me. She said that although her methods were despicable, it was only because she loved Fei Rue too much. Did you know? She even showed off her clean body in front of me, saying that she wanted to give her first time to Fei Rue and make him her first partner." That look of longing for a beautiful future really made people want to shatter it. So, when she was imprisoned as a clan slave, I used a little bit of the fox seductive fragrance to make a school of male fish trample her laughable dream into dust. But unfortunately, her look of despair was not good to look at, and even made me feel that it was very boring. As Cole said, it was as if he was commenting on a handicraft that had failed on the verge of success. No matter how close the process was to perfection, it was still a mess and could not return to its original form. Gu Mingming frowned as she listened. Dora choosing to cooperate with Cole was equivalent to making a deal with the devil. She was not innocent, and it could even be said that she had brought this upon herself. But hearing Cole's explanation, Gu Mingming suddenly felt that Dora was rather pitiful. Chapter 984. I wanted Dora to just die like that. Cole continued. Suddenly he laughed and said, but I unexpectedly found out something interesting. A tiger who yearned for the sea once met a female mermaid by the sea and fell deeply in love with her. It's a pity that tigers cannot survive in the deep ocean, and since there are so few mermaid females, they would never leave the ocean to live on land. Tiger? Ha, wasn't Leonard just a tiger? Gu Meng Meng gave a disdainful chuckle. Why taint the word accident? Didn't you choose to make use of Dora from the very beginning, because you saw this added value in her? Cole's eyes brightened. He looked at Gu Meng Meng with obvious approval. Agu is indeed Agu. She is so different from those foolish females. Gu Meng Meng was not at all happy to be praised by Cole. She stared at Cole coldly and didn't say another word. Cole was still smiling. He said in I really don't know what to do with you tone. All right, I admit it. From the start, I knew that the female mermaid Leonard had his eyes on was Dora. But Dora only wanted Fei Rue. She would never leave with Leonard. So I could only play a little trick to help this pair of lovers be together. Play a little trick. Ha, Gu Meng Meng despised Cole a million times in her heart. He used these few words to describe Dora's hellish torment as a slave of the clan. He had used the fox's seductive fragrance to attract the male fish to torture Dora. Part of it was his vulgar sense of humor, but more importantly, it was to make Dora's heart break down and sink into despair. This was the only way for Dora to hug Reynold tightly when he appeared, as if clutching at a life-saving straw. And the clueless Leonard would only feel heartache over the torment his beloved had suffered. Step by step, he would fall into Cole's trap. The most important part was that Cole had predicted that Dora would never be able to obtain Fei Rue. Because once Dora obtained Fei Rue, she would devote all her attention to Fei Rue and would never work for Cole again. In other words, from the very beginning, Cole had never intended for Dora to obtain Fei Rue. He had lied to her. He had lied to her right from the start. As for Dora, it was probably only on her deathbed that she understood. Using Fei Rue to keep Dora hanging, instigating Carter to imprison Melinda, forcing Fei Rue into a corner. Then, he would intentionally leak news of the kiss of the ocean to Fei Rue. Eager to save his sister, Fei Rue would naturally head to Saint Nazaire to look for Gu Meng Meng. Cole did not need to interfere in the subsequent matters. He only needed to manipulate a few chess pieces at the crucial moment to easily achieve his goal. Once Reynold rescued Dora, he would use Fei Rue to summon Dora again. Dora had done so much for Fei Rue. She would not be satisfied if she could not have Fei Rue. So, Dora would definitely listen to Cole and instigate Leonard to take in the old tribesmen who had attacked the Snake King Valley. Then, she would go to Sauter to ask for peace and use the soul of the forest in exchange for Gu Meng Meng's forgiveness. Ha! Was this the real reason why Cole wanted Gu Meng Meng to go to Sauter before winter? He had to ensure that Leonard would be able to find Gu Meng Meng when he went to sue for peace. Thinking about it this way, Chapter 985. Cole stared at Gu Meng Meng with an even more amazed expression. He said with anticipation, My Agu is so smart. Tell me, what else can you think of? I'll tell you everything you've guessed. Gu Meng Meng gritted her teeth and turned away from Cole. She didn't want to speak to Cole anymore. She was afraid that she would lose control and strangle Cole to death. She was even more afraid that if she continued, she would kill herself on impulse. There were clues everywhere. Why didn't she see it back then? The stray beasts had attacked them at the bottom of the sea. Their 100-strong team had been reduced to a few kittens. Carter was severely injured, while Fei Rue, who was weaker than him, only had a few superficial wounds. And she had clearly noticed that the stray beasts were intentionally attacking Melinda. She had just thought that it was to restrain Carter and Fei Rue. Now that she thought about it, it was Dora who wanted to kill Melinda and snatch Fei Rue away. But there was one thing that Gu Meng Meng couldn't understand. Melinda was Fei Rue's biological sister. She wasn't a threat to Dora. Why did she hate Melinda so much that she was willing to risk the chance to snatch Fei Rue away just to kill Melinda? Was it an intolerable relationship between a lover's sister? Or was there something else between her and Melinda that wasn't their relationship? She couldn't figure it out and had nowhere to ask. Dora was dead. The reason why she could not tolerate Melinda had become a thing of the past. With Dora's death, the dust had settled. Gu Mingming didn't pursue the matter further. She just buried her face in Elvis's neck and whispered, "I'm tired. Let's sleep for a while." Let's sleep." Elvis supported her, but with one hand, and patted her back with the other, patting her gently in a rhythmic manner. Leah had been standing between Gu Mingming and Cole. His furry tail seemed to be swaying nonchalantly, but it blocked Cole's line of sight completely. It was fine when his Gu Mingming wanted to talk to Cole, but now that his Gu Mingming was about to sleep, Cole was still looking at her shamelessly. Cole looked at Leah and chuckled. "Ninth Highness, aren't you a little too impatient? This kind of childish behavior. It will only make me feel that treating you as an opponent is simply an insult to myself." Leah was neither angry nor amused. He just looked at Cole coldly and said, "Childish? But my Mingming said that this is called a child's heart, and she likes it very much." Leah was filled with disdain. If Cole had tried to goad him into action in the past, he might have fallen for it, or at least his emotions would have been affected. But when they were carving the 36 stratagems on the wall of the meeting room, Gu Mingming had told them the gist of these stratagems as she watched them carve. These days, he had been pondering over and over again when he had nothing to do, and now he had mastered it thoroughly. It would not be as easy as before for Cole to use these tricks against him again. Cole also knew that Leah had learned the 36 stratagems before, so he did not think that he would succeed in goading him into action. It was just a test. Cole chuckled and said, "Agu has contributed a lot to Ninth Highness growth. I'm getting more and more interested in her. She can even train an innocent person like you to this extent. If she were to be with me." Chapter 986. Cole chuckled but didn't answer Lee's question. He wasn't angry either. Dirty? It didn't matter, as long as Agu was as dirty as him. So as long as she liked them, he would send them to her bed, no matter how many males there were, for her to pick and play with. As long as he was the one standing by her side in the end, everything would be fine. Cole didn't say anything else. Leah also couldn't be bothered to waste time with him. The group didn't say anything else until the white fog was completely absorbed by the soul of the forest in Gu Mingming's hands. Only then did they see that under the white fog, there was a natural tunnel formed by the intersecting trees above their heads. It was just like the long corridor, where princes and princesses would walk hand in hand when they got married. Sunlight shone down, creating countless rays of light that added a sense of romance and warmth to the long corridor. If Wabiai and Cole weren't around, this scene would be the most beautiful and romantic. Gu Mingming didn't want to talk to Cole, and he didn't continue chattering. They finally reached the end of the path. Gu Mingming lay on Elvis's shoulder, her face facing the path they had walked through. She didn't turn back, but Gu Mingming could feel a cold murderous intent behind her. This murderous intent wasn't directed at her. Elvis, Leah, and Wabiai were all around. Even if she wasn't a beast king, and was just an ordinary female, no one could hurt her in front of the three of them. She turned back with a probing look. Meeting Leonard's bloodshot eyes, Gu Mingming frowned. Seeking revenge. Gu Mingming muttered softly. It wasn't a question but a statement. On the way here, Cole had already admitted that he was the one who killed Dora. Hence, it was obvious who Leonard was waiting for. Cole didn't seem surprised by Leonard's appearance. His smile turned chilly as he said, "You have disappointed me again, little Xian." Gu Mingming's body stiffened at the last word. Just a moment ago, she had been standing by as if this matter had nothing to do with her. But now, her beautiful eyes were searching everywhere. Little Xian Qi Xian. The smell of blood filled her nostrils. Gu Mingming carefully identified it for a long time, before realizing that it was Qishuan's scent. Cole was not lying to her. Qishuan was here and he was injured. She glanced sharply at Cole, but he shrugged his shoulders innocently and said, "Little Xian was the one who requested to stop Leonard and let me go in to fetch you. I was just following little Xian's wishes." Reynold was a level 4 orc. Even though he had just suffered from the backlash of the mating contract, the difference in levels was huge. How could Qi Xian, a newly evolved level 1 orc, defeat him? Cole was forcing Qi into a dead end. Clenching her fists tightly, Gu Mingming squeezed out 2 words from the gaps of her teeth. Kuh. Ugh. Cole chuckled and replied with a sweet smile. Ah Gu, you're looking at me so intently again, it's so nice. I'll kill you. Gu Mingming's eyes were bloodshot and filled with hatred. He looked into Gu Mingming's eyes with a look of enjoyment. Yeah, I'm very honored to be the first soul whose name is remembered in your hands. Throw open my chest and use my blood to establish your bloodthirsty rule. I will be the first soul whose name is remembered in your hands. With Xianer accompanying me on the road to the Yellow Springs, I'm not afraid of loneliness. Intimidation. This was blatant intimidation. Cole was saying that if he died, Qi Xian would be buried with him. Chapter 987. Gu Mingming was being carried by Cole. She clenched her fists tightly to stop her body from trembling. At the same time, Leonard had already rushed over. He did not care that he was covered in blood, nor did he care that he was no match for Cole as a 4th level. He was already blinded by hatred. Other than killing Cole, he had no other thoughts. However, just as he reached Cole, he was stunned by Cole's sneer. Kneel down. Leonard's entire body convulsed uncontrollably. Then he really knelt down. Gu Mingming was very surprised. She did not feel any beast pressure from Cole at all. But Leonard was obviously stunned. This Cole looked up, enjoying Gu Mingming's surprised gaze. He smiled. Ah Gu, do you see that? I am such an unparalleled existence, and I have left a place for you by my side. As long as you are willing, you are my master. I am willing to submit to you, to use this world as a stepping stone, and to bring you to a higher place. There's no need, Gu Mingming said. She patted Elvis's shoulder and asked him to bring her away. Gu Mingming felt some sympathy for Leonard. Those who hated stray beasts had now become stray beasts, but still had to crawl at the feet of their enemies, unable to resist. Gu Mingming finally understood what Leah had said before. Cole had never enjoyed killing, but seeing others struggle in despair. He wanted the pleasure of trampling on others. And Gu Mingming could not do anything about Leonard's predicament. After all, Dora was the female he had chosen. He was also the one who had decided to take in the old tribesmen who had attacked the Snake King Valley. He had even used the soul of the forest to sue for peace, and left Dora behind to search for the soul of the forest with her. He had done everything himself. Now that he had ended up like this, who could he blame? Cole had made use of Dora to scheme against Gu Mingming. But Gu Mingming knew that she had never harmed anyone before. She would not be so innocent as to take all the blame on herself and say that if it wasn't for her, things would not have turned out this way. She just wanted to know where her son was and how he was now. Elvis understood Gu Mingming and did not say a word. He just carried Gu Mingming out of the corridor and looked around for Qi Xian, who was sprawled under a tree not far away. Clearly, he had been beaten back to his original form. If not for the slight rise and fall of his abdomen indicating that he was still alive, Gu Mingming would have fainted from not being able to catch her breath. Leah stepped forward and started his treatment without a second word. Frowning, Leah cursed in his heart. This damned Leonard, he was too heavy-handed. If Cole didn't kill him later, he would kill him with his own hands. Mengming's heart would ache to see Qi Xian beaten up like this. Leah, how is Qi Xian? Gu Mingming's voice was very soft, as if raising her voice would cause further harm to Qi Xian. But even such a soft sound could not cover the frequency of the trembling. This son of hers always tugged at her heart, causing her so much pain that she wished she were dead. Leah took a deep breath, then turned to look at Gu Mingming. He frowned and said, Mingming, you have to promise me that you must remain calm. Once she said that, Gu Mingming's whole body went limp, and she directly fell into Elvis's arms. She held back her tears and asked, will he die? Chapter 988. Gu Mingming nodded. She knew this, because last winter, when Elvis pretended to be unconscious to create an opportunity for Leah, Leah had told her this. Once something happened to her, Leah would prioritize taking care of her regardless of anyone else's life or death. So if she wanted Leah to focus on treating Qi Xian, She had to adjust her attitude. She could not allow herself to be distracted by anything. Leah held Gu Mingming's shoulders with both hands. Seeing her determined expression and gradually calming gaze, he exchanged a look with Elvis before continuing to treat Qi Xian. Many of Qi Xuan's bones were fractured, probably caused by external injuries. His internal organs were also severely damaged, probably caused by his refusal to submit to the beast pressure of a higher level. There was a serious buildup of water in his chest, and blood kept flowing from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were starting to lose focus, as if he was forcing himself to look in a certain direction. Leah followed his gaze. It was not Gu Mingming but Cole. "Rascal, listen up." Leah pinched Qi Xuan's mouth and forced his face to face him. Then he said with a cold expression, "If you die, your mother will kill Cole to vent her anger. And I will put all the tears your mother shed because of your death on Cole's account. I will open a sacrificial altar and make him suffer for eternity, never to see the light of day again. I am a witch doctor, and also the son of the deity of the Snowfox tribe. You know I have this ability. If you want to protect Cole, you better grit your teeth and bear with it. Live on no matter how painful it is." With that, Li's palm turned into a sharp claw and accurately opened a small hole in the water in Qi Xuan's chest, letting the water out. Gu Mingming's heart ached as she watched, but there was nothing she could do. In this King era, where there were no anesthetics, Gu Mingming really wanted to use her own chest to bear the pain in Qi Xuan's place. But she could not make a sound. She could not even cry, because any emotion she showed would distract Leah. Clenching her own mouth tightly, Gu Mingming stared fixedly at Qi Xian. Leonard's tragic cries came from behind, but Gu Mingming could not muster up a single ounce of sympathy. Her son had been injured by Leonard. This was a debt that Cole and Leonard could not escape from. Puffed. Qi Xian coughed out a mouthful of blood onto Li's face. Leah continued to focus on treating Qi Xuan's injuries, as if he could not feel it. Cole walked to Gu Mingming's side and crossed his arms in front of his chest. He looked at Qi Xian and Leah with a cold smile on his lips, completely unable to see the love he had for Qi Xian in the past. Qi Xuan's body convulsed even more violently. His eyes were already glazed over, and it was obvious that he could not hold on any longer. Then Qi Xian gradually calmed down. He stopped convulsing. Furthermore, he did not move an inch. Gu Mingming could not control herself and started sobbing softly. Leah stood up and walked to Gu Mingming's side. He could not bear to see her teary eyes, so he just lowered his head and said, "Mingming, I'm sorry." Gu Mingming's emotions crumbled at those 3 words. She shook her head furiously. "No, don't let me down. Leah, I beg you, save Qi Xian. If there was a way, how could I bear to let you shed a single tear?" Leah was speechless and could not say a single comforting word. Chapter 989. Gu Mingming widened her eyes and glared at Cole. "If you lie to me, I will make sure you die a horrible death." Cole chuckled and released Gu Mingming's chin. With his palm facing upwards, he said, "Give me the soul of the forest." Without another word, Gu Mingming handed the soul of the forest to Cole. Without further ado, Cole turned around and squatted beside Qi Xian. Then, he placed that tiny branch between Qi Xuan's brows. Like a leaf in Gu Mingming's palm, that branch gradually melted between Qi Xuan's brows and disappeared. A tattoo-like mark appeared on Qi Xuan's forehead. It was just a branch with 2 forks. One of the leaves was quietly unfurled, while the other was still curled up like a baby's swaddling clothes. A miraculous scene unfolded before Gu Mingming's eyes. The wounds on Qi Xuan's body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. The rise and fall of his abdomen increased and gradually calmed down. Without another word, Leah squatted back beside Qi Xian and flipped open his eyelids to look at his pupils. He then turned to look at Gu Mingming and nodded with a smile. Gu Mingming then heaved a sigh of relief, feeling that her heart had finally returned to her chest. Cole tilted his head and looked at Gu Mingming. "Gu, I saved little Xian again. Tell me, how should you repay me?" "Repay?" Gu Mingming's eyes were about to bleed, and the blood vessels on her fists were about to burst. She questioned him word by word. "You almost killed my son. How do you think I should repay you?" Cole looked at Gu Mengmeng with an innocent expression. It was little Xian's own decision to stay and fight with Leonard. He is an adult. Shouldn't he be responsible for his own decision? Furthermore, the one who injured little Xian was Reynolds. I have already crushed Reynolds' bones inch by inch to avenge little Xian. You even used the soul of the forest to extend Xian'er's life. The kiss of the ocean and the soul of the forest are the ransom that you promised me. I used such precious treasures on Xian. Shouldn't you be thanking me? Gu Mengmeng suddenly felt that she could not speak. Gu Mengmeng's worldview was so low that she could not respond to it. It was said that a tree without its skin would definitely die, and a person without face would be invincible. This time, she had seen it for herself. He had harmed her son so many times, and now she was thanking him. What do you think if I remove your head? Gu Mengmeng clenched her fists, wishing she could crush his head. But Cole chuckled. He glanced sideways at Qi Xian, who had yet to wake up. You don't want the son you just saved. You. Gu Mengmeng was trembling with rage, but she was helpless because of Qi Xian. She could only grit her teeth and ask, what do you want for Qi Xian to be let off? Cole tapped his chin and looked up at the sky. He seemed to think for a long time before replying slowly. I'll use you to exchange for it, how about that? If you stay by my side, I will let Qi Xian go, and let him leave me. Another one. Gu Mengmeng would never agree to Cole's conditions, because if she did, she would be forcing Elvis and Leah to die. Cole thought about it awkwardly, then pointed at Gu Mengmeng's left ear and said, how about cutting off your left ear and giving it to me? Left ear? That was where Lee's mating mark was. Chapter 990. If one ear could be used to exchange for a son, Gu Mengmeng would not hesitate at all. Cole shook his head, his gaze cold. You clearly know that I do not want to hurt you. Why do you have to provoke my jealousy? I can't bear to hurt you, so I can only vent my anger elsewhere. Tell me, how about I change little Xian's name? Not Qi Xian. Let's change him to Fish in the Pond. You keep using Qi Xian to threaten me. Aren't you sick of it? Gu Mengmeng really hated him. She swore that as long as Qi Xian was no longer so blindly loyal to Cole, she would personally tear Cole into pieces. But Cole didn't mind. He just smiled. It doesn't matter if it's new or old, as long as it works. Little Xian is your Achilles heel. As long as I control him, you can't do anything to me, right? Even if you are so angry that you want to bite me to death, I will still generously display my artery in front of you. But you still have to forcefully suppress your desires and anger. Ha, Agu, your life is too tiring. Isn't it better to be more unbridled? As long as you can break through that shackle, your soul will be the most free. Break through the shackle? Ha, the shackle in his eyes was her son. Anyone could say harsh words, but if they couldn't do it, it was just nonsense. Gu Mengmeng didn't want to waste even a little more saliva on Cole. She just glared at him fiercely. She wanted to remember the pain and anger she was feeling now, so that she could settle the score with him in the future. Qi Xian made a soft sound. Gu Mengmeng's heart was on Qi Xian. She jumped down from Elvis's arms and pounced towards Qi Xian. She hugged him carefully. Qi Xian, tell Mummy, are you feeling better? Does it still hurt? Qi Xian moved his limbs slightly, before slowly transforming into a human in Gu Mengmeng's arms. Gu Mengmeng sized Qi Xian up. She didn't see a single wound on him. She touched his arms and legs. His bones had all grown back. Only then did she heave a sigh of relief. Qi Xian looked at Gu Mengmeng and pursed his lips, as if he did not know what to say. Him following Cole was equivalent to Gu Mengmeng being controlled by others. Seeing Gu Mengmeng being forced into a corner because of him, it was not that he did not feel guilty, but he could not stop. He wanted to say, Mom, I'm sorry. But how could these 5 words express his apology? Besides, if he didn't repent, what was the point of saying sorry? He also wanted to say, Mummy, don't bother about me in the future. But he also knew that Gu Mengmeng was different from other females. If she could be more selfish and not care about his life or death, she would not have been so helpless against Cole, and could only shed tears. If only his mother was a little more selfish, then perhaps his heart would not be so tormented. But his mother was not him. She did not have a heart as cruel as him. nor did she have a personality as selfish as him. In the end, Qi Xian did not say a single word to Gu Mingming. He just stood there and let Gu Mingming stare at him with her teary eyes. Then, he turned around and walked back to Cole's side. He lowered his head and did not say a word, just frowning deeply. Cole gently rubbed Qi Xuan's head with his large hands. My good little Qi Xian, this is a blessing in disguise for you. Not only did you not die, you even leveled up. Ha! You are indeed the son I raised. You are indeed the most outstanding one in the litter of cubs. Aside from the topic, today's update has ended. Sigh. I still had to be disgusted by Cole on my birthday. I am probably the only author who would torture himself like this. Chapter 991. Seeing that Cole was about to bring Qi Xian away, Gu Mingming grabbed Qi Xuan's hand. Qi Xian, Mummy has not seen you for a long time. Can you stay with me for a few days? Just a few days. Qi Xian did not say a word, and just looked at Cole with pursed lips. Cole smiled but did not say a word. He had a you decide attitude. Gu Mingming ignored Cole, and just walked to Qi Xian. Her eyes were filled with anticipation, and even pleading. Your brothers are here too. They are in the stray beast camp. They just evolved into level 1 orcs. You probably haven't seen what they look like after evolution, have you? Let's go and take a look, okay? Qi Xian remained silent as he looked at Cole again. Gu Mingming bit her lip. She had never thought that there would be a day when she would have to beg another man in order to keep her son by her side. Most importantly, this man was not even her son's father. The humbleness that she had never experienced in love was all used on her son. Gu Mingming turned around, her hand still clutching tightly onto Qi Xuan's wrist, as if she was afraid that he would run away the moment she turned around. Gu Mingming bit her lip and said, I want Qi Xian to stay with me for a few days. Go ahead. Cole stood with his hands clasped behind his back, as if he didn't care at all. But that sly and cold smile was filled with a sense of provocation. This meant that if he did not agree, Qi Xian would not agree. Gu Mingming took a deep breath. Isn't the stray beast camp your territory? Since we're already here, why not go back and take a look? Cole chuckled and played with a few strands of hair in front of Gu Mingming's forehead. Gu, are you inviting me? Gu Mingming suppressed her disgust and glared at Cole with clenched teeth. It was as if Cole could not understand the hatred in her eyes. He nodded and accepted it gladly. Since it is Gu's invitation, how can I let her down? I'll accompany you wherever you go. Gu Mingming turned to pull back her hair, then turned to look at Qi Xian, her face full of anticipation. Qi Xian opened his mouth and finally said softly, I will go wherever he goes. Gu Mingming nodded and pulled Qi Xian into her arms. Now Qi Xian was as tall as a grown man, and Gu Mingming could no longer carry him like a child. Today, she could only wrap her arms around his waist, and her height only reached his chest. But even so, a mother's hug still exuded boundless warmth, burning Qi Xuan's chest. Gu Mingming did not let Elvis hug her, but held on to Qi Xuan's hand stubbornly, not willing to let go for even a moment. Elvis's heart ached for her to walk on the mountain roads. Even though she was wearing beast skin boots, the soles were too thin and her feet were so soft. Her skin would break after walking for less than 500 meters. If she really had to walk to the base camp of the backwave beasts, her feet would be so worn that even her bones could be seen. Hence, Elvis transformed into his beast form and carried Gu Mingming on his back. He did not seem to mind that the mounts of most females in the beast world were beast pets that would never have the chance to mate. That was a sign that their family status was low, and they lacked power. He didn't care what others thought of him, as long as his Xiao Meng didn't suffer. Chapter 992. Gu Mingming didn't have time for him. Elvis, who was carrying Gu Mingming, also didn't have time for him. Leah was free, but a 4th-level beast was too weak, so Wabi turned his attention to Cole. I heard you are the king of the stray beasts? Wabi asked. Cole chuckled. How would I dare to call myself king in front of Lord Wabi? Wabi really didn't like such a pretentious person. He snorted I saw that you were quite arrogant when you were mocking Gu Mingming. Why are you so terrified now? Cole wasn't angry. I have always been gentle and polite to those I cannot afford to offend. That was the truth. Cole couldn't beat Wabi. There used to be someone in this world who could beat Wabi Snake. Unfortunately, he died. Now there was Gu Mingming, who could beat Wabi. Unfortunately, she was busy. Wabi shouted. Being invincible is so empty. He glanced sideways at Cole. If you're a coward, then so be it. Why are you spouting so much nonsense? With that, he ignored Cole's reaction and walked over to Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming, where are we going next? When are we going to fight? I have been cooped up for an entire winter. My bones are all stiff. Gu Mingming glared at Wabi impatiently. Do you think I have violent tendencies? How can there be so many fights for you? Don't disturb me from coaxing my son. Wabi pointed at Qi Xian. He is already so big. Does he still need you to coax him? I don't care. Hurry up and fight me. Gu Mingming was really annoyed. She hooked her finger at Wabi to come over. Wabi swung his arms and walked to Gu Mingming's side. Then, he was sent flying far away by a slap from Gu Mingming. He only managed to stop after crashing through 7 to 8 trees. This time, not only Wabi, but even Gu Mingming herself was stunned. Her strength, when did it become so great? In the past, Wabi would stop after crashing into a tree. At most, he would break one. Today, she had purposely held back. How did this happen? Wabi wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and swooped back in front of Gu Mingming. He stared fixedly at Gu Mingming and hesitated for a long while. Let me see the mark on the back of your neck. Gu Mingming pushed aside her hair and turned to show Wabi. Wabi was stunned for a moment and shook his head. It's not him. It's not him. How could this happen? Why isn't it him? What? Gu Mingming didn't know what was going on either. She was a little worried when she saw Wabi looking like he had seen a ghost. Wabi stared at Gu Mingming with widened eyes, as though blood was about to drip out of them. He held onto Gu Mingming's shoulders and said, Go and see your father now. Ask him what he did to Snake. Gu Mingming reached out to touch the back of her neck. She could not see any changes to the mark, so she could only seek help from Leah, who was standing behind her and scrutinizing the mark on the back of her neck. She used her gaze to ask if there was anything wrong with Snake's mark. Leah was a fox. He might be able to differentiate the minute differences between animals with 4 legs. But snakes, from Lee's point of view, every snake really looked the same. Leah shook her head, indicating that she did not know. Gu Mingming could only look at Wabi again. Don't be crazy. You have to explain clearly before I can ask. You're already more than 800 years old. Why are you so jumpy? Chapter 993. Changed. Gu Mingming didn't understand. She looked down at her collarbone. Elvis was a 3rd-level beast when they mated, and now he was a 5th-level beast. But the mating mark hadn't changed. It had remained the same as when he was a 3rd-level beast. The mark on her ear could only be seen at the water's edge, but Leah would definitely tell her if there were any changes. So why did Snake's mark change? Was it because it wasn't a mating mark, but a protection mark? But what was the turning point? Could it be that Wabi's worries were right? Did something happen to Snake over there? Perhaps she really should ask the beast deity. But, looking at Qi Xian, who was holding hands, Gu Mingming pursed her lips and suppressed the uneasiness in her heart. She couldn't go to sleep now. She would sleep for at least 3 to 4 days. And Qi Xian would definitely be gone by the time she woke up. If she missed this chance, she didn't know when she would see Qi Xian again. There was one thing she had to try no matter what. She couldn't help but hold Qi Xuan's hand tighter. Gu Mingming's eyes were filled with determination. She looked back at Wabi and said, I will ask him later but not now. Wabi was enraged. He pointed at Gu Mingming and shouted, He has already died for you once. What else do you want him to do? Is your female heart made of stone? Can't you show him even the slightest bit of mercy? Gu Mingming bit her lip and accepted all of Wabi's accusations. She admitted that she owed Snake. She deserved to be scolded. But she was a mother. In her eyes, nothing was more important than her own son. Qi Xian had already gone through the gates of hell once today. She couldn't guarantee that pervert Cole would think of another way to torture Qi or place him in some dangerous place again. She wanted to snatch Qi back. She had to snatch him back. You. Seeing Gu Mingming's silent but uncompromising attitude, Wabiai's eyes narrowed. He was clearly enraged. Charging forward, he roared. I will knock you out even if I have to risk my life today. Before Wabiai could reach Gu Mingming, Leah had already scooped her into his arms and retreated far away. Meanwhile, Elvis stood up at the same time and neutralized Wabiai's attack. Both of them continued to fight. Elvis and Wabiai had fought many battles, real or fake, so they were familiar with each other's attacks. At this moment, Wabiai was really anxious. Snake was a string that he could not touch, and he could not calm down at all. On the other hand, Gu Mingming was the bottom line that Elvis would never give in to. No matter how strong she was, he would never allow anyone to attack her in front of him. The two of them were locked in a stalemate. In terms of skills, Elvis was still slightly weaker than Wabiai. Seeing that Elvis was gradually losing ground, Gu Mingming frowned and shouted, Everyone stop! She did not release her beast pressure. But Wabiai suddenly fell to the ground, as if something was pressing down on him. He couldn't even get up. Elvis stood rooted to the ground, stunned for a moment. Turning back to look at Gu Mingming, he was also in a daze. Gu Mingming didn't know what was going on. She had clearly just shouted, and she could scare the out-of-control Wabiai to the ground? She didn't think that Wabiai was that afraid of her. That was... Chapter 994. Gu Mingming suddenly recalled Cole telling Leonard to kneel down, as well as Leonard's strange reaction. Gu Mingming clearly remembered that she had not felt any pressure, but Leonard had knelt down at Cole's feet. The situation seemed to be the same as now. What do you know? Gu Mingming asked directly. Cole tapped his lips with his finger. What's in it for me to tell you? Gu Mingming snorted. It's up to you. Ignoring Cole, Gu Mingming walked towards Wabiai. Worried that Wabiai would hurt Gu Mingming if he lost control again, Elvis and Leah guarded her from both sides. Gu Mingming walked to Wabiai and reached out a hand. Listen to me when you have calmed down, all right? Wabiai sprawled on the ground, unable to get up. This was different from the previous times when he was sent flying. He had no energy left in his body. Not to mention 5th-level orcs like Elvis or Cole. Even a 2nd-level wolf cub like Qi could easily kill him. Not to mention 5th-level orcs like Elvis or Cole. He did not move, and just looked up at Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming said, Snake has another me accompanying him over there. He will not let that me fall into any danger, so the most important thing is to protect himself. Do you think Snake is someone who can be easily defeated? Wabiai was stunned for a moment before shaking his head. Snake was a godlike existence. He was powerful and invincible. No one was his match, be it in terms of intellect or martial skills. He was at the peak of perfection. At that thought, Wabiai calmed down a little. His vertical pupils gradually widened, and his emotions visibly calmed down. Gu Mingming heaved a sigh of relief before continuing. I will ask my father about Snake later, but Qi just came back from the gates of hell. I really can't stop worrying. Let me accompany my son first, all right? Gu Mingming heaved a sigh of relief. Wabiai snorted and did not say a word. The place where the beast deity was Gu Mingming's dream. Unless Gu Mingming was willing, no one could kidnap her and send her there. So Wabiai's words had no say in whether it was good or bad. Can you get up now? Don't lie on the ground like a spoiled child. Gu Mingming smiled, her hand still extended in front of Wabiai's eyes. Wabiai roared internally. He wanted to stand up the moment he laid on the ground, but his eyelids were the most powerful part of his body. The most intense movement he could do was to blink. Cole took 2 steps forward and bent down to whisper into Gu Mingming's ear. If you don't say he can get up, I'm afraid he will have to lie here for the rest of his life. Gu Mingming did not understand, but still tried it. You can get up now. Wabiai flexed his fingers and felt his strength gradually returning. He propped himself up and sat up. Wabiai looked at Gu Mingming, then at Cole. What do you know? Hurry up and tell me, or I will kill you. Cole did not seem to take Wabiai's threat seriously. He continued to smile casually, looking elegant, but with a hint of provocation. For little Xian's sake, a gu will definitely protect me. Gu as gu ming 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 ming. Chapter 995. Wabiai's smile was filled with sarcasm. He had already been suppressing a bellyful of anger, and Cole was the only one here who had nothing to do with Gu Meng Meng. Who could he blame for throwing himself at him? At the end of the day, even when he was fighting with Elvis in a fit of anger, he did not really use his killer move. He still cared about Gu Meng Meng. After all, apart from Elvis, Gu Meng Meng was his only friend in the past 800 years. But Cole, a lowly ant. Squashing him to death was just right. Cole's neck was being strangled by Wabiai, and he was almost suffocating. But he was still smiling provocatively. He had never been afraid of death before. But Qi Xian suddenly rushed out and bit Wabiai's wrist that was strangling Cole. The bite force of a second-level wolf beast was very shocking. If not for Wabiai's insane level of power, his wrist would have been crushed in Qishuan's mouth. He wanted to raise his hand to slap him out of reflex, but when he saw Qishuan's face, Wabiai finally stopped. If he slapped Qi Xian, he would be smashed into minced meat. Thinking of Gu Mingming's reaction when she found out about the special training he had done for the three little ones, Wabiai knew that if he slapped him, Gu Mingming would never be friends with him again. Tightening the muscles on his wrist, he forcefully flicked Qi Xian away. This was the absolute suppression, due to the difference in strength. Looking at his bleeding wound, Wabiai frowned and walked away, ignoring everyone. Gu Mingming was in the wrong from the start. As the one who inherited everything from Snake, she should be concerned that something had happened to Snake's mark. Wabiai's request was not unreasonable, but she had rejected Wabiai's request for her son. And then her son had bitten him. Leah, go take a look at Wabiai. He is injured. Leah understood Gu Mingming's worries but shook his head. You should worry about Qi Xian first. Gu Mingming looked at Leah in confusion. Before turning to look at Qi Xian, she realized that Qi Xian did not look too well and was shocked. Only then did she remember that Wabiai and Snake were both venomous snakes. She still remembered that she had bitten Snake and almost lost her life. It was only because Snake turned around and helped her detoxify the poison that she managed to survive. Gu Mingming hurried forward and supported the swaying Qi Xian. Then, she let him lie flat on the ground and looked around, trying to find the antidote herb in Snake's memories. However, there was nothing. Gu Mingming was extremely anxious, but there was no other way. Just as he was thinking of learning from Snake and biting the tip of his tongue to feed some blood to Qi Xian, fighting poison with poison. But before she could do so, Qi Xian swayed and sat up again. He held his forehead with one hand and placed the other on Gu Mingming's shoulder. He gently pulled Gu Mingming into his arms and comforted her. Mom, don't worry. I am fine. Gu Mingming's heart suddenly felt like it was being viciously clawed. All the grievances she had endured for the entire day suddenly exploded. Sobs, my little Xian. I thought you didn't want me as your mother anymore. You ignored me when I spoke to you. You didn't even follow me home when I asked you. Sobs. Seeing Gu Mingming cry like that, Qi Xian was clearly at a loss. He looked at Cole blankly. Cole seemed to have never dealt with such matters before, so he just stared blankly at Qi Xian. Chapter 996. Gu Mingming's bawling actually made the atmosphere much more relaxed. Qi Xian seemed to be extremely afraid of Gu Mingming's tears, and didn't dare to make her feel at ease. Whenever he saw her red eyes, he would obediently reach out to hold her hand. Gu Mingming was overjoyed at this change. Ever since her son was taken away by Cole, he had never been close to her, and would even deliberately distance himself from her. He always acted as if he wanted to avoid her and not acknowledge her. But now it seemed that she had been overthinking. Her son still loved her dearly. Otherwise, why would he be afraid of her crying? With this understanding, Gu Mingming's mood became much better. She always looked at Qi Xian with a wide smile, as if there were flowers blooming beside her head. Meng, don't always look at Qi Xian. Look at me too. Leah swished his large tail in jealousy. For the first time, Gu Mingming was immune to Li's tale. She pushed Leah away and continued smiling at Qi. She elbowed Elvis and said, "Look at how handsome my son is." "Mom, don't worry, I'm fine. I am mommy, so carrying my son is such a warm boy." Gu Mingming had already repeated this, "Mom, don't worry. I'm fine," 37 times. Every time, she would mimic Qishuan's tone and use a boy's voice to say it, until Elvis's ears were about to grow calluses. If not for the fact that he was very sure that Qi was his son and would never have any other feelings for Gu Mingming, he would have already killed him. He shouldn't have had any wolf cubs back then. Why did he create so much trouble for himself? Elvis was furious, but didn't dare to say it out loud. He sighed and said, "Is it really all right for Wabi to leave just like that?" Gu Mingming's face darkened at the thought of Wabi. She then looked up with a smile and said, "It's all right. Little shit is not a petty person. At most, I'll let him bite me back." Elvis pointed at Qi and said, "Him? Is he enough for Wabi to take a bite?" Gu Mingming exploded and said, "What him? Who dares to bite my son? I'll kill him. I said bite me. Bite me and we'll call it even." Elvis held his forehead and said, "Why don't I or Leah return him an arm?" Gu Mingming patted Elvis and said, "Although this sounds a little cunning, but don't worry, Wabi will not really bite me. After all." Gu Mingming rubbed the back of her neck, a bitter smile on her face. She enjoyed all the benefits Snake had given her. But when his imprint went wrong, she did not even bother to look at him. She was indeed a bad woman. She was not worth all that Snake had done for her. But even so, in that world, Snake still doted on her so much. As Gu Mingming was in a good mood, the journey was not as boring. In the evening, they returned to the stray beast camp. Qi could not stand Gu Mingming's sparkling eyes, and finally decided to follow her back to the cave, where they were temporarily staying for the night. He could also meet up with his brothers. Chapter 997. Returning to her cave, Gu Mingming could see Wabi hanging from a tree outside the cave from afar. He was in his original form, hanging there lazily. The only thing missing was a sign around his neck that said, "I am in a bad mood, come and coax me." Gu Mingming let Elvis and Leah bring Qi into the house to familiarize themselves with the three little ones, while she walked over to Wabi with her hands behind her back. She looked up at the huge snake hanging from the tree. She did not know if it was because of Snake's memories, but she did not seem to be too afraid of snakes now. Smiling shamelessly, Gu Mingming said, "Little shit, are we even now? I won't be angry at you, so don't be angry at me too, alright?" Wabi stuck out his tongue and said in snake language, "Even? On what basis? What did I do to make you angry?" Gu Mingming pointed at his body and said, "You know I hate snakes, shit and snakes that look like shit. Yet you still hung your original form here. Aren't you purposely trying to annoy me? I have already endured my disgust to come over and express my goodwill to you. So don't be angry." Wabi was so angry that he wanted to bite her to death. He came down from the tree, and by the time he stood in front of Gu Mingming, he had already transformed back into his human form. He pointed at Gu Mingming's nose and said, "Do you only dare to use your sharp tongue on me? Why didn't you scold back when Cole was making things difficult for you in the day?" Gu Mingming did not get angry. She wrapped her arms around Wabi's arm and said, "Am I not a coward? I am obviously bullying you because you can't bear to hit me." Wabi was actually speechless. Gu Mingming tugged at Wabi's arm and looked at the wrist that Qi had bitten. She kept her smile and said in a low voice, Sorry, it was Qishuan's fault today. He shouldn't have bitten you." But Wabi did not appreciate her apology and said, "There is nothing should or shouldn't. It is normal for males to attack each other. It was my decision not to retaliate. Who asked me to not be able to offend his mother?" Gu Mingming gave a sweet smile like a younger sister and said, "Let Leah take a look at it. Apply some herbs or something, so as not to leave a scar." Wabi snorted coldly. "What's a small injury like this? In the past, when I was beaten up by Snake until I was on my last breath, I didn't even apply any ointment, but I was still full of energy the next day." Gu Mingming pursed her lips. "I intend to cast a bewitching spell on Qi, so that he will no longer rely on coal. Only then will he return to my side, and I will no longer be held hostage by coal. So I really can't go see the beast deity today. Otherwise, when I wake up 3 or 4 days later, who knows where Qi Xian will be brought by coal again. The longer they stay together, the worse it will be for me. So, I'm sorry. After fighting with Elvis and calming himself down by hanging on the tree in the afternoon, Wabi was no longer angry. Just as Gu Mingming had said, he could not bear to hit her. Even though he clearly knew that he was not Gu Mingming's match in a real fight, he just could not bring himself to attack this fellow, who looked so small that he could flatten her with one slap. At first it was because of Snake, then, it seemed to be out of habit. Accustomed to taking care of her, accustomed to protecting her, accustomed to her noise, accustomed to her dependence. There was a warmth to her body that made him want to approach her uncontrollably. But it was strange. He was clearly a cold-blooded animal, but he still yearned for warmth. Chapter 998. After coaxing Wabi, Gu Mingming entered the cave. The 4 children were already in a mess. Although Qi Xian appeared rather cold compared to the other 3 brothers, Gu Mingming could clearly see the smile in his eyes. Kanwu was the most carefree, and did not feel that it was embarrassing for him to be born from the same womb as Qi Xian. Qi Xian was already a second-level beast, while he was just first level. On the contrary, he was extremely proud. He chased after Qi Xian with shining eyes, as if he could not wait for the whole world to know that his second brother could soar 90,000 miles into the sky, and could stand shoulder to shoulder with the heavenly sun. This made Qi Xian feel rather embarrassed. It felt so good to be worshipped. Heda was the eldest among the 4 brothers. Although he was still a first-level beast, he behaved like a big brother. He only joined in occasionally as his brothers fooled around. Most of the time, he held a fruit by the side and stuffed it into the mouth of whoever came close to him. Jiaoyu was the smartest. He was not as strong as Qi Xian, and not as strong as Kanwu, so he would run over to Heda to ask for food most of the time. Seeing that Jiaoyu was eating, Kanwu joined in the fun, and stuffed the fruit into Qi Xuan's mouth instead of eating. Qi Xian was shocked by the stuffed fruit, and was stunned for a moment before eating it with a smile. Seeing how the children were getting along so well, Gu Mingming could not bear to step into the cave and destroy this harmony. Seeing that Gu Mingming was standing at the cave entrance smiling foolishly without entering, Elvis and Leah were annoyed by the 4 little ones. They grabbed the back of their necks and threw them out. There are many caves here. The 4 of you go and fight for a temporary place to stay. Elvis stood at the entrance and looked down at them. Kanwu snorted and hugged Qi Xuan's neck. Second brother, where we stay tonight is all up to you. Qi Xian was a little hesitant. Actually, he wanted to go back and find coal. But the 3 brothers were only first-level beasts. If the 3 of them went out to fight for a cave, they might even get injured if they failed. Although second-level beasts were not considered powerful in a place where stray beasts lived, Kanwu had worshipped them for an entire night. He felt that it was too disloyal to leave the 3 of them alone. So he nodded and allowed Kanwu to hug his neck affectionately as they walked away, swaying left and right. The 4 brothers discussed their battle strategy as they disappeared into the night. The laughter of the 4 brothers still echoed in the night sky. Their laughter was a little exaggerated, but it was very fitting of their age. She felt warmth behind her as Elvis pulled her into his arms. Let's go in. The night wind is cold. Don't get too cold. Gu Mingming did not turn back. She just leaned back and pressed her entire body against Elvis's chest. Her gaze was still fixed in the direction of her son's departure, and the corners of her lips curled upwards unknowingly. Even her voice was sweet. I never thought that I would get married at 18 years old, and have 4 grown sons at 19 years old. Elvis tightened his embrace and said faintly, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have let you give birth so early. Idiot, why are you apologizing? I don't think it's bad. I just hope that it'll be better if it can be like this forever. Elvis knew that Qi Xian was Gu Mingming's sore point. This was also the reason why he said that Gu Mingming should not have given birth so early. Chapter 999. Fool. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "You gave me your entire heart. This is already the most beautiful form of love. How could it be just SOSO?" Gu Mingming tilted her head and looked up at Elvis's side profile. The moonlight was gentle and hazy, adding a tinge of gentleness to his coldness, as if blurring his sharp edges. Even his blue eyes had a unique allure in the night. "Hubby, I remember you telling me that you were angry at me the first time we met, blaming me for dressing weirdly and being unguarded. You said that if the person who came was not you, I would have been seen by others, so you were very angry." Thinking of the past, Gu Mingming could not help but chuckle. She continued asking, "But you never told me, other than being angry, did you like me at all? If I didn't like you, why would I be angry? Stupid." Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's lips at the last word stupid. It was a light and lingering kiss. Elvis did not deepen the kiss and only asked back, "What about you? Did you like me the first time you met me?" Gu Mingming smiled shyly and said, "The first time I saw you, God said 4 words in my ear. I can't escape from this calamity. The funny thing was that I thought you were just a dream, and did not believe that there would be such a perfect you in real life. You even allowed me to tease you. Ha! I kissed you then, and said I would not take responsibility. Isn't that considered acting like a hooligan?" "Yeah, you can say that." Elvis smiled indulgently and did not blame her. Instead, there was a tinge of sweetness in his smile. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "Well, at the beginning of a great love story, there has to be someone acting like a hooligan first. Look, Whitesnake purposely made it rain to trick Su Xian's umbrella. Zhu Yingtai pretended to be crazy and teased Brother Liang when they were sending each other off. The 7 fairies blocked Dong Yang's way. The cowherd took away the weaver maiden's clothes while she was bathing. Gu Mingming seduced Elvis and kissed him in her swimsuit." Elvis listened to her fallacious reasoning, but did not argue with her. Whatever she said was good, and whatever she said was right. The cave is already warm, don't stand outside. The humidity during the rainy season is high, and it's not good for Gu Mingming. Leah called out from inside the cave. Elvis carried Gu Mingming back to the cave. Gu Mingming sat by the fire and hugged her knees. After hesitating for a moment, she said, "I want to use the bewitching spell on Qi Xian." Leah pursed his lips and said, "I have also thought of this idea, but I feel that it is not appropriate." Gu Mingming looked up. "Are you also afraid that Cole might have given Qi Xian a hint beforehand, causing irreversible damage if I attempt to cover the bewitching spell?" Leah nodded in reply. Gu Mingming sighed and said, "This is also the reason why I did not dare to take action until now. But I can't wait any longer. Qi Xian almost died today. What about next time? I didn't know when Cole would push Qi Xian into danger again. I can't take it anymore." Elvis held Gu Mingming's shoulders gently and said in a low voice, "Maybe killing Cole is the simplest way. If you want, I can go now." Gu Mingming shook her head. "Cole wants to kill him, but not now. I want to snatch Qi Xian back first before killing Cole. Otherwise, if Cole dies and my bewitching spell cannot be overlaid, with Qi Xuan's current feelings for Cole, I don't know what crazy things he will do. So Cole cannot die for now. Aside from the topic, yeah, that's all for today's update. I know everyone has been holding it in for a long time. Gu Mingming was unable to snatch Qi Xian back, and was constantly threatened by Cole. Chapter 1000. The next day, the 4 brothers returned with bruised and swollen faces. It was also Gu Mingming's first time seeing someone's face turn into a colorful screen and still look extremely excited. Before Gu Mingming could say anything, she heard Elvis ask, "Did you win or lose?" "Of course I won." Kanwu raised his head with a proud look, feeling quite proud and elated. With that, Kanwu pounced towards Gu Mingming. Now that he was taller than Gu Mingming by 1.5 heads, Gu Mingming could no longer hug him like before. But he still could not change his habit of hugging Gu Mingming. He especially enjoyed the sight of Gu Mingming caressing his head and smiling indulgently. But the moment he hugged Gu Mingming, he touched the wound on his chest, causing him to grimace in pain. Elvis stood by Gu Mingming's side the whole time. He was extremely displeased with Kanwu hugging Gu Mingming, but could only bear with it due to Gu Mingming's love for the 4 children. Seeing Kamwa grimace in pain, she snorted coldly and said, "That was an ugly win." "You." Kamwa felt so embarrassed that he was flustered. Just as he was about to challenge her, he felt his waist tighten. Lowering his head, he met Gu Mingming's gentle gaze and forcefully swallowed back his words. He snorted and said, "I won't argue with you on account of my mother." Gu Mingming could not stop laughing. She reckoned that the only first-level orcs who dared to speak so arrogantly in front of a 5th-level beast like Elvis were the few cubs in her family. So, from a certain perspective, her sons were at least more courageous than others and very charismatic. "Quick, tell mother. What happened to you guys yesterday?" Yesterday was the first day the 4 little ones officially became independent. It was also the first battle the 4 of them cooperated in. Gu Mingming had wanted to peek last night, but Elvis stopped her. He said that she needed to adapt to the fact that the children had grown up and needed to face the world independently. Upon hearing Gu Mingming asking about yesterday's incident, Kamwa's eyes immediately lit up. He pulled Gu Mingming to sit at the side and said, "Mother, let me tell you. The 4 of us went to fight a 3rd-level beast last night." "3rd level?" 3 level 1 beasts and 1 level 2 beast, against a level 3 beast? Gu Mingming frowned. The difference in levels was absolute. It was the same when Leah completely defeated Nina's partner. She clearly remembered that Leah had taken less than a few seconds to settle Nina's over 10 partners. TSK, these 4 stinking brats, don't they know to pick the soft ones to pinch? When stray beasts fought, they would immediately kill. How would they dare? Biting her lips, Gu Mingming held back her scolding words. The children were in high spirits, and Gu Mingming did not want to dampen their spirits with a bucket of cold water. Kamwa gesticulated as he talked about how brave the 4 of them were last night. From time to time, he even pulled the other 3 brothers to cooperate and show the scene to Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming was infected by Kamwa's excitement and listened to his story nervously. Elvis and Leah were not very interested. After all, to them, the level of battle that Kamwa mentioned was not worth mentioning at all. Chapter 1001. But we were still not his match. At that time, Dao and Lu were all knocked down and could not even get up. But that stray beast had no intention of letting us off. Kamwa suddenly changed the topic and his mood sank. Even Gu Mingming was so nervous that she held her breath and clenched her fists tightly. Even her brows were furrowed together. Just as that 3rd-level beast was about to charge over and bite us to death, second brother rushed over like a deity and blocked our way. Suddenly, Kamwa's tone became louder. He turned and gestured to Qixuan with both hands. Although I could only see second brother's back view, that back view was enough to win me over. He was tall, imposing and determined. He fulfilled all my fantasies of being a hero. Gu Mingming listened to Kamwa's fanboy narration and couldn't help smiling. And then, Kamwa lowered his head and looked at Gu Mingming with regret and grievance. He pouted and said, "Then I fainted. When I woke up, the 4 of us were already in the cave, and we don't know where that 3rd-level beast went." Gu Mingming nodded. "Fainted?" Gu Mingming was a little speechless. He actually fainted at the most exciting part. Kamwa nodded and said with an aggrieved expression, "Yes, I fainted. Afterwards, no matter how I asked second brother to tell me what happened, he wouldn't tell me. Mom, why don't you help me ask?" Gu Mingming looked up at Qixuan. Qixuan pursed his lips and looked like he was in a difficult position. It was obvious he didn't want to tell her. Gu Mingming didn't want to put Qixuan in a difficult position. You are so close to your second brother. If he doesn't even want to tell you, why would he tell me? At your age, don't you all have some secrets that you can tell the whole world, but you're not willing to tell your parents? Kamwa raised his brows. No way. I have no secrets from Mum. No matter what it is, as long as Mum asks me, I will tell you. Gu Mingming chuckled and stood on tiptoes to rub Kamwa's little head. I will listen. Kamwa shook Gu Mingming's arm coquettishly. Mum, then help me ask second brother. Let me tell you, he is afraid of you now. If you ask him, he won't dare to not tell you. Gu Mingming pointed at herself. Afraid of me? By right, she had always been a loving mother, right? He had never said a harsh word to his sons, let alone hit them. There was no reason to be afraid of her, right? Camwoo whispered into Gu Mingming's ear. He is afraid that you will cry. Once you cry, he will be at his wit's end. Gu Mingming blushed at the thought of how she had cried in front of her son that day. Before he could say don't mess around, Ma Yinggu stumbled forward and knocked down the other three like a bowling ball. The four brothers fell into a ball, and the youngsters, who were already covered in injuries, instantly wailed. And the main culprit, Elvis, only used one arm to carry Gu Mingming and said in a condescending manner, "If you dare to make my female cry again, I will kill you." Camwoo wanted to explode, but was pulled back by Jiaoyu. Then Jiaoyu climbed up and patted the dirt off his body. He tilted his head and said, "There are loopholes in your words." Elvis raised his eyebrows but did not say anything. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.